Hello everybody, this is JP3 here, coming at you with another Deathless, Painless, Exploitless run through Halo 2's Legendary difficulty. This is playable mission number 12, High Charity. Now, if you've been following this channel long enough, you might know that this is actually an update. I did have a previous High Charity recorded for this project, but it ran a little long. It was kind of one of those things where I put the first one up that I got Deathless, or I guess the first time I tried it, I ran it Deathless, and so it was more of an exploratory thing, so it really didn't make sense for a walkthrough. This is quicker, and I'm hopefully going to explain it a lot better as well. Rush of Flood that are fighting against some Covenant, but it seems like the fight comes to you a lot quicker than you would think a lot of the time. And so right now I am de-shielding the elite combat forms and just taking them out with headshots, since we start out without any sort of carryover with the plasma pistol and the carbine. And so this is the safe spot I like to go to, because the human shotgun, human flood forms will often have, at least one of them will often have a shotgun. And if you know anything about shotguns and flood in this game, you'll know that they can hit you from quite far away with the shotgun and kill you. One thing that I didn't realize until I actually did this this particular recording is that, and I don't know why I didn't realize this before, but if you kill all of the flood in a group of sorts, the last flood will drop its weapon almost in the same way that a brute will when they're berserking. But instead of, I guess, heading towards you and running headlong all of the time, they will kind of run around kind of a little bit crazy. So it's hard to explain. I may show you some more other examples later on, because I do want to talk about this strat here. So as soon as I get done with the first wave, I jump over and get close to that door. That will trigger the second wave. What will happen is you'll have some grunts come through the door and some flood come out of the pelican. And then they clash. But again, not usually a fight that lasts very long at all for the Covenant. And I'm not sure why in the world that guy didn't just super combine, so we're going to make sure and super combine his guts too, just in case. I only picked up the Needler because it was available. It's actually not a bad weapon at all. You just don't see a lot of it in this stage usually. I pick up the wrong shotgun, so now I've got to wait for this thing to reload. Between Halo Combat Evolved and Halo 2, the Master Chief got slower at reloading a shotgun for whatever reason. So anyway, so now the third wave that's going to come through this door is not one that's so easily triggered. You have to actually go inside the door and you'll get a checkpoint, and then 4 brutes will come out, and they are ferocious from distance, as they always are in Halo 2 on Legendary difficulty. So I'm going to do my best to try to trigger them and then just immediately start throwing explosives their way and hope that I can get at least a few kills. Notice how I did not stick out there for long at all, but I did get 3 kills, so there should be 1 brute left. Now right after that comes a wave of flood, and they're a pretty nasty wave that can include a shotgun flood. And so what I like to do is try to get them to fight the brutes. If I don't kill all of the brutes or most of the brutes the way I did just then, we should have a berserking brute somewhere. But it's also possible that the flood triggered because I went far enough and maybe kills that berserking brute. So instead of us facing the berserking brute, we face off against the flood that was going to be triggered. So now we're just going for headshots here. I'm not really sure how my shield got down just then, but it did. I'm not really sure why a rocket in the middle of a bunch of flood can't blow them all up, but that's Halo 2 splash damage for you, especially when you're the one using the weapon. And so, and notice how I stood on that little kind of triangular shaped pillar that I was just now facing. I like to do that because eventually you're close enough to the door that eventually the flood or the berserking brute will come out. But I think there you're in somewhat of a good position to try and rocket flood that are coming through.
I'll disable this lift once you reach the top. That'll slow them down. I hope.
Now, when we come over here, we're going to be doing some long-range work against a lot of drones. Now, if you shoot them early like I am now, then they tend to do some really weird stuff. Normally, they're scripted to go over and fight Flood coming through the door to the left, but notice how I just had them all split up, which is really not a good idea. The best idea is to have them fighting against the Flood, and then you shoot them as they, you know, hopefully become more and more successful. You don't want any of the drones stuck over there somewhere where you can't see them, for them to only come out later on and make your life a living hell when you're in the open. When you kill all but one drone, then these 5 will come through. I've sniped them all with, you know, awesome accuracy, and then this kind of stuff can happen. So it just depends on, I guess, how twitchy you are. But notice here that we eventually take them all down. You just want to make sure there's no drones remaining over here when you get ready to go this direction. Because you will be going over to that left pillar. I like to take a full beam rifle over with me, and I like to take the short-range weapon of my choice. I generally like to go with the shotgun for a lot of this level because I think that it keeps your distance between you and the Flood whenever you're fighting them, whereas the sword puts you much closer. And against multiple Flood, all it takes is 2 hits or 1 hit to the back to kill you. So breaking up bodies, yes, the much better bet. I don't know why this guy isn't attacking. Let's just stick him for good measure. But, you know, whenever I'm breaking up bodies, of course, the sword's best for that, and it's the best for breaking up the body, I guess, upon initial impact. So, but I like the shotgun for its range, I guess. It's relative range in this game. So I like to stay right on that spot when I come into the room and then shoot them as they're coming out the door so as not to trigger this wave of Flood and the drones at the same time. I don't know why in the world we can't get a headshot on this guy here, but that one goes down first shot with very little aiming involved. So they usually come through with a carbine. There is a shotgun over here that's pretty full, so I go ahead and re-up on that. It's usually always over there to the right. Now this room is where it really starts to get scary. There can be 2 Flood forms in here, and they can range from all types. It can be 2 carrier forms, or it can be a sniper form and a shotgun form. Guess which ones I got. So I make the brave move there and stick that guy, but because I stuck him, the other guy drops his weapon. And just so you know, I think this becomes apparent later on, the guy I stuck actually had a sniper rifle, and by the way, they are just as accurate, just as deadly, just as snapshot, no-scope MLG as the Jackals. So it's not really the Jackal snipers that are the problem, it's the way that this game was programmed and how the enemies handle a sniper rifle when they have it. And so, got rid of him, got a nice stick there, and then the next guy actually had a shotgun, but he dropped it after I killed the first guy. Now, this is a little abnormal for him to not come back into this room. Again, this is why I say it's not like they're berserking like brutes, but they do drop their weapon and kind of start to run around a little crazy. If I'd have been a little bit closer, or maybe would have killed the first guy with more noise, there's the sniper there, then it might have been a little bit easier. But instead, he actually does us a big favor, goes into this room and attacks the Covenant that are in here, which is, of course, what I want. The 2 Flood that come out when you pass a magic line in this room come out of the door to the right. I want them to do that. That's what they normally do. But our third guy actually apparently went in there as well. And so that's good. And then there's 3 carrier forms that come through the door where the 2 combat forms come through. And they angle themselves toward the room there with the Covenant. I usually like to go ahead and get rid of them as soon as possible. This is one of the reasons I don't like the sword and would rather have the shotgun, is I do find it actually easier to use the shotgun. And it seems like there's the potential for a lot of ammunition of it, as there is in this part here. But I wouldn't bank on it. Go with the short-range weapon you like the most, but always try to make sure you have a long-range weapon somewhere, because you will need it as well. So it looks like the Flood won in a rout here, which is pretty typical. So I'm going to go ahead and pick up this BR, and I'm going to go ahead and pick up this carbine as well. That way I have plenty of long-range weaponry to play around with. Headshot weaponry, I should say. So yeah, when they win in a rout in this situation, and you kill the Flood that come back through to you like that, then this room is kind of a nice little respite for the hell that awaits. This isn't a long level. It isn't an overly intense level. It's a massively RNG level. Like I say, at the first, I could get the sniper, who if he sees me, he can shoot me dead just with the same quickness that a jackal sniper could, or I could have had 2 carrier forms there and not had to make the, quasi MLG grenade stick to kill him. So it really is it's the RNG-ness and of course the just absolute terror that these enemies are with shotguns and or sniper rifles. So I'm kind of juggling weapons, as you can see here. My glut of weapons. Taking my time, being careful. So in here, there's usually a flood or 2 if you don't go any further than that. By the way, I'm using the Xbox One DVR to record these. I am having some audio issues with my most recent recordings for some reason, so not with every clip, but for some reason with this clip, so I did lower the volume, as you saw in the little note there. So as soon as you cross the magic line, those 2 guys spawn. I jump past them and do this exact same thing every time. It works really well. Now you got this big giant group who are pretty easy to take on with the sword when they're all just jumping at you. And of course you're not wasting any sword charge to kill them. But with all the shotgun ammo we have, we could just as easily have used the shotgun instead. Yeah, the audio syncing is way off here, so I apologize if it kind of screws with my concentration a little bit and I sound dumb on something. Talking about something. So in here, usually there are a couple of flood that spawn in, but sometimes they might be in the room early or may never drop down. It's again, back to the RNG element. But if they are in this room, once you open that door to this room, they're almost always hanging out near the door on the right or left side. It seems like in my memory, they're mostly always to the right or right and left. So either way, it doesn't matter. Just be ready for that. Ultimately, this is, I think, a little more rare of an occurrence where you see nothing in here like that. I tested it a little bit to see if maybe going back through to the next room fast enough would cause that to happen, but I'm not sure if that has any effect at all. So here's the reason why we have the long-range weapons, or at least one of them. So this room can have a jackal sniper. That jackal sniper, as far as I know, it can only be one, but it can have a jackal sniper. It can be posted all the way over to the far, where we're pointing now. It can be closer to us up here. So you want to be really careful. Ultimately, I would suggest that of all the levels, this one and Gravemind are the 2 that I wouldn't personally advise you make it such a big point to run this Deathless unless that's really what you want to do, because the RNG in this level is so bad that notice here we've got a lot of shield jackals, so we may have not had this jackal sniper spawn here. Sometimes a jackal sniper won't spawn at all. But anyway, because the RNG can be as such that it can be, blah blah blah, it probably is best to run this level, see how that turns out. If it doesn't turn out well, then instead of waiting and hanging back and taking forever to make sure that jackal sniper's dead before you proceed forth or blah blah blah, it's probably best just to approach this level with a healthy amount of, I don't know if we almost got splat there or not, with a healthy amount of just, just kind of play it safe, but don't play it crazy trying to avoid, well look here, now this room, the flood in this room can have a rocket launcher. It might be really cool to get a rocket launcher this early and then stock it with a couple of situations where there's almost always going to be a rocket launcher flood. Again, he could have easily popped out of that door with the rocket launcher and killed us. So I usually like to destroy most everything in this room. There's really not a ton of harm in trying to do that. So in the first room that has the water and the lily pads and the flood gunk everywhere, you can take that one relatively slow and careful. This next room, however, requires a certain amount of procedure that may or may not always work. So right here off the top of the bat, this is a flood-filled room at the start. That guy up there on the bridge is a rocket launcher, a guy, he's almost always there. Notice that he wasn't Johnny on the spot with firing at us then for whatever reason. I threw a grenade just to kind of see if I could stick him or get his attention. But then I usually come back here and wait for the flood to come through. A shotgun flood can also be amongst the group that are in that room at this time. If you don't cross a line in that room, you won't spawn in the additional enemies that come through, who I will describe later as being an absolute nightmare to have to deal with if you have to deal with them. So I'm trying to draw the flood out here. I want them to come through. I want to get rid of them and proceed forth. Notice how we're being followed by, it looks like an elite combat form. There is a rocket launcher guy, but he usually doesn't follow, and usually you can kind of catch him off guard, or even have him drop his weapon if you kill enough of the other flood. So I'm being ultra careful here to get the Deathless run. You don't necessarily have to be. Again, this is not like Halo Combat Evolved, where the rocket launcher guys are just, I mean, immediate in their firing of the rocket at you if they see you. They do tend to be a little more cautious about it, I guess. A little less trigger happy. So here's the rocket launcher guy here. He goes into camo, I guess. I'm not really sure. That was kind of strange. So as soon as I see that the flood are all dead here, and Truth starts talking, then I make a run for it. This is the room where you make a run for it. The next up is drones and camo elite, human combat forms, I think, mostly human. So I make a run for it. We don't mess with them. Usually you get a spawn in this room. It can be an elite combat form with a brute shot straight ahead, or sometimes it's a shotgun human flood to the right or left. I get none there. I think that has something to do with running through as fast as I did, because I hadn't seen him the last few times I had tested this. So now we're going into one of the more feared battles in Halo 2, the Sanctum, the Sanctum of the Hierarchs, the Sanctified battle. If you look at the chapter title, even on MCC, despite a Jackal sniper being over there, I immediately run over here and get into this vent. And look how perilous that actually is. It's not always that perilous, but it is the best option that I've been able to come up with for this room. I had another strat that I liked, a backup strat, but it never seemed to work consistently, and so I'm going with the tried and true, you've seen it before strat. And so my goal, my hope, my prayer is that given this strat and given my lack of interference, by the way, you want to keep your back to this wall, and any flood that spawn in through this room will not see you, should not see you. And so anyway, I like to keep my back to this wall, and I don't like to interfere with this battle because I don't want to expose myself to the Jackal sniper or potential human sniper who's probably going to be in camo. So they run right on through. It even looked like the human flood turned around. They're the one with the weakest weapon they can hold, the SMG. But so I might, once I notice, I can't remember how many waves spawn through a flood, but once I get a feel that the spawning is over, then I like to try to influence it. And by influence it at this juncture, I simply mean kill anything that's still moving. But it looks to me like, well, here we go. I would like to see, it would be nice if I have this much rocket launcher ammo, and it would be nice if the Covenant win, because if the Covenant win, then there's the Jackal sniper, but he dropped his weapon at some point. You can see by the way he's standing and looking at us that he is a Jackal sniper who has dropped his weapon and now has his plasma pistol out. So we did get fortunate here, and the flood lost. Because of that, and look what we have left. We have a Berserking Brute who we can probably take out from range. I mean, it is Halo 2, so it's going to take forever to kill him, even though we just shot that first rocket right at where he's at. But we know that this Jackal sniper here is absolutely no threat because, again, he's dropped his sniper rifle. And I do not mind at all as far as wasting rockets because I'm not planning on taking this into the final combat arena. So now that we have all of them dead, and just know again there can be camo snipers, human sniper flood. We're back to regular audio now, thank goodness. There's the Jackal sniper, and I swear I think I've seen another beam rifle sniper in here, so it could be that an elite or a human with a beam rifle, an elite combat form flood with the beam rifle can be in here as well. So you could have, possibly under massively rare conditions, as many as 3 snipers in that room. So that's why I stay back. and wait in that vent, and then see if I can influence the fight later on. Oh, that's a lot to explain. So now we're going up to the final part here. Now you want to talk about RNG. This is where the RNG can really hurt you. So there is a Jackal Sniper at the far end. There is a Brute to the right. If either notice you right off the bat, it's highly likely that you'll die, or that you'll die to the Jackal Sniper. Either A, because he snipes you fairly fast coming off of that lift, or B, because you're paying attention to that Brute who's going to try to grenade your position or charge over here and try to hurt you. The Jackal Sniper kills you that way as well. Of course, the Brute can kill you as well. And so right now I've got good RNG and didn't have the Brute attend to me right away, but just really terrible positioning there with respect to that Jackal Sniper. And I was hunting him instead of the other way around, and well, we finally got him. But so if you want to fight this battle out and eliminate all the enemies in this area, or at least have all of them be dead, you can hang out back there and behind those under those steps and have a pretty good chance at it, especially if you bring yourself a shotgun. But I decided not to do that. I instead make a massive platforming error and fall off, but notice still we're pretty good and we make our way out of here despite that error. So that is high charity for you. And again, we've got some good RNG, some bad RNG, depending on the section we were looking at or looking into. But for the most part, things were pretty easy going with the strats. I can't guarantee that. Best thing to do is don't turn on the Iron Skull. Don't mess with any of that stuff at all that Deathless stuff, unless you're really going for that. Best thing to do if you're doing this on Legendary is just get through it, man. Just get through it and call it a day, because it's not a good level. It's a garbage pail, really, in all reality. Of all the Halo 2 levels, it's not the hardest by far, especially if you're not going for Deathless. It's just a matter of time, and so it's a matter of time and checkpoints. So anyway, I hope that this helps you out if you were stuck in this level somehow. If you did not help you out, then please leave a comment. Also leave comments for any other things you'd like to say, any other expressions you'd like to make of stuff and such and so forth. If you like this kind of content, please hit that thumbs up button. If you want more of this content, please subscribe. And if you want it hot off the presses, fresh off the factory line, then click the bell. There's a little bell over there. Click that, and that'll guarantee that you get notifications, as far as I know at least. As for now, this is JP3 signing out. Have a wonderful, wonderful day, and thank you very, 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 very much for watching. Goodbye.